Hi, this is Nancy Miller from My Creative Life, and today I'm interviewing Danielle Brannon, and she is a photographer in the Statesboro area. She has done photography work for the Everett Center, and she also does photography for weddings, any kind of special events, senior pictures, and so I'm really grateful to have her here today. And could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Danielle?
Okay. Well, I'm from Statesboro originally. I'm a full-time art teacher, and photography is sort of my passion that I can't let go of. So I've consistently, I guess, pursued it on the side all the way through high school, college, through teaching now, and I've been really lucky to get this job at the Everett Center this past year as their contracted photographer.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw the beautiful photography work that you've done for the Everett Center. I really love the
Thank you.
dancing poses that you did. So, like, when you go, well, actually, let me get through these other questions. I was very excited, though, by the dancing photography. And then I did see some,
The
yeah,
dancers.
the dancers. Yes, those were
Yes,
gorgeous.
that is a soft spot for me. Actually, I was a dancer for 16 years. Took ballet,
Wow.
jazz, modern, all of that. So I think whenever I get to shoot a dance show or, ballet, that's kind of close to home for me. Like I really enjoy getting close. And I guess I can predict a little bit more what's going to happen next or how to catch that spin or catch that leap. I'm more familiar with that.
Oh, that's awesome. But definitely we're going to talk some more about that. But I wanted to go into, can you describe a little bit more about the first time you remember making art?
Yes, yes. I was probably 3. We were living in, actually, we moved around a bit when I was little. I was in Elberton, and I remember there was a drawing I did of a playground, and my mom saved it, and it was the thing that she took out all the time and showed everybody because I drew the monkey bars with perspective where they were in 3D, and she was just like blown away by that. It was that, and then she had taken a picture of me playing with Play-Doh about the same time, and I did details on my people with like eyes and noses, and they had fingers and a mouth and hairstyles. And I think it was her sort of noticing at a really young age and sort of being proud of that and sharing it with people that kind of made me go, oh, I might be an artist. I mean, I think a lot of times people's kids, they do creative things, and if you just overlook it, then they don't pay attention to that and they don't keep pursuing it and keep trying. I think it was my mom early on
That's
kind of,
awesome.
just instilling that in me.
Yeah. Now,
There's
was your mom very creative? Because I always wonder if, like, sometimes, you're exposed also not only doing it, but sometimes you have that role model at home that kind of is a little crafty or was artsy.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom, she's really great. Everybody says she's great with like interior design. She just has like a knack for that. She could draw a little, and so could my dad. And so I used to always joke when I was in school and everybody thought I could draw so well. I was like, I think it was my parents, like with their powers combined, like
Oh,
they both had it
nice.
a little bit, and then just, with the two of them putting me together, I was like, I guess I got both their skills.
That's awesome. It's great to get that encouragement and kind of nurture that kind of skill with your artwork. So you talked about photography has always been that passion that's kind of gone from high school and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. But what got you into photography in particular? Because you say you started in high school doing it. So what inspired you to pursue that?
You know, Honestly, I think for me, photo really started. I think my 8th grade year.
Oh wow.
I went on a trip to New York. I don't know if you're like the Quest program in
Uh-huh.
schools. Went on a trip to New York. Going around New York City, with disposable cameras, right? Because it was a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
But I remember coming back with all of my pictures printed out, and my art teacher, Dwight Miller at the time.
Dwight
Um,
Miller was your.
yes,
Oh my
yes,
gosh, I totally forgot about that. I think you all mentioned that, or
yes.
Dwight might have mentioned that because he was doing some subbing. He subbed for you, but he might have
He
even
took care of
mentioned.
my maternity leave
Yeah,
many years later.
because then I would run into him and I think he mentioned that. That is so awesome.
Yeah, so I went back to class when I got back from the trip, and I was showing Mr. Miller like some of my pictures, And I remember he was the first person that said, you've really got an eye for this. These are really good. And I think, again, that encouragement made me, want to keep clicking and keep shooting, with the disposable cameras. And, the surprise was, okay, well, let's see how these turned out when I print these out.
That's great. I mean, and I felt like that from him. Like he's a really good, like his love of art, and he was always interesting. I'm sure he's enjoying retirement, but it was like he was really interesting to talk to, and just because he taught for so long and taught so many different students, I think that's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So, who are some artists that inspire you for your work?
When it comes to my art, it's kind of odd. I don't really follow that many photographers. When it comes to art, probably my favorite, I'm a huge fan of Gustav Klimt. Huge fan of his. Of course, Gogh, probably from all my years of dance. You can't help but like Gogh as well. And then Van Gogh. Big fan of Van Gogh. I think not only his artwork, but just the stories behind him too. For the troubled artist that never even realized how talented he was.
Yeah,
it's kind of this tragic story, but really beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, and now he's like one of the most celebrated artists of all time. He died penniless, which hopefully that doesn't happen to us. But
that was when I taught high school. That was always kind of like a lesson that really stuck with my kids. Was I don't think they realize until somebody tells them that he did not die this successful rich artist. We actually did a project when I taught high school. Where I told them about the relationship between Van Gogh and his brother Theo. And one of the lessons were, I told them about how they wrote the letters back and forth. And the assignment was, imagine if you could write Van Gogh a letter today, to let him know what an impact his artwork has had on the world. And it was just really, I don't know, touching to see what my kids got from that and what they put into those letters, and how they understood that lesson.
I'm totally stealing that, Danielle. I'm
really?
stealing.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Now. You can do that.
That is awesome. That is a great lesson because, I do some photography with the students, but it'd be really great if they find a photographer they really like who may have passed away, or even that's a photographer who is celebrated. It's always hard to imagine you could communicate with them. A lot of times I find it's interesting. A lot of artists, they're just fairly regular people, and they are willing to, if you reach out to them. But I think there's a lot of intimidation when you do. Would they ever even read this? But that's great. It gets them really thinking about. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'm totally stealing that one. So.
Yes.
So you talked about that you've been encouraged by family, art teachers. But you talked about that you just got this contract with the Avery Center about a year ago. So what was the process? Because I think it's really interesting for people who are wanting to make that leap into visual arts. They have some skill sets, and then how did you get into that position where you felt like, hey, did you have a portfolio? What did you do? What was your process?
Actually it was through my daughter, I guess, in a way. My daughter was in the class. And she was in pre-K with another little boy that his mom was over marketing and the graphic design at the Avery Center. And she, I think, heard I was a photographer, at one of the little Christmas parties or something. And she was like, hey, we need somebody. Would you mind coming and shooting this for a poster? And it took out from there. And she really fought for because it was actually, the position didn't exist before. And she really kind of fought for me to be the contract photographer. She's our go-to, just praised me. She's talented. We like her, all that. So I really kind of appreciate her making that happen for me.
Oh, that's awesome. See, and I always think it's interesting. It's those little connections that you never know. And you mentioned, and I think for me personally, it was very difficult to really push myself. If you're, when I first started out in illustration and graphic design was way easier because it was just walk through the door, show my portfolio, get hired. But illustration was harder because it was one of those things I'd have to send things out. I would go and try to drop off my portfolio. It was very intimidating, but you never know until you bring yourself out and just kind of, tell people that you even do that kind of work, that you get that kind of attention. But I love your dancers. I saw the one, she's she's in a blue, it looks like, I guess it's called a tutu. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
a ballerina's outfit. And she's doing this, but I think she might be holding a little wand or something. And I love how you kind of the focus on it and the colors and the saturation. So I felt like it felt very like dreamlike, but kind of, I'm assuming it was something that was, some kind of ballet where maybe they were kind of transported to a different, like maybe mythical or magical place. And I thought you really captured that very well in that photograph.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, beautiful. So how do you get that vision? Because I just taught a class on Lightroom. I really wish, I should have had you talk to my students. Like their questions were like, because it's very, to me, I think when you're first starting out in photography, you don't realize the effort and the time and the composition that's placed. Like your beautiful photograph, like how many other photos that we don't necessarily see that, can you tell us a little bit about that process? Because that was things that my photography students in my Lightroom class would talk about their process. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, like casually, like whenever I'm having people like just take a picture for me, with my camera or phone, I jokingly say it, but a lot of it is part of the process. I'll say, take 5, take 10, maybe we'll like 1, and I say it jokingly, but that's a lot of it. You shoot, let's say she's got a 3-minute solo, I might shoot 30 pictures, 50 pictures are in that solo, and then fall in love with 3 that I push and edit. And those are the ones that everybody sees. But it's like for every 1 photograph I publish, there's probably 10 similar behind it that, got trashed or they just stay on my computer for me,
Wow. So how do you do, because that's something I've never done, is like when you do an event like that, because you're trying to probably stay a little bit more in the background. How do you get those kind of compositional shots, but not, because it's live events, some of them, or are they, how do you do that?
Okay.
What do you do?
With the Averitt Center, they usually have for everything, there's the dress rehearsal.
Oh, okay.
I go in 95% of the events, I'm shooting the dress rehearsal. That way I'm not blocking an audience member. I can be at the floor of the stage. I even kind of go behind the curtains and kind of play in the wings and take some shots there, just to get up close. Like they've told me, they've pushed me, encouraged me, say, go ahead, get out there, get the shots. Like, don't worry about being in the way. Like, they're all professional enough. They're not going to break character, Awesome. So yeah, a lot of it is that I get to move around. I'm more limited if I shoot an event live. Every now and then I have to. But even then, I sometimes will just kind of switch seats. I'll kind of sit, on the right-hand side for a little while. Maybe intermission, I switch to the left-hand side just to get a different angle,
That's awesome. So how do you do when you do your like engagements or your senior photos? Because that's also something that, that's interesting to me, but like how do you figure out like what works compositionally? Like how do you get a feel for do you already know some of your clients in advance when you do those type of photos shoots, or is it how do you kind of read them for location and all that?
I do, but a lot of times it's blind, and that sometimes can be a challenge. Like when I meet somebody at the shoot, like if I'm doing prom pictures or senior pictures, sometimes I meet the person at the shoot, and that's a disadvantage at times because I don't always maybe know their personality, kind of how they're gonna be comfortable posing, if they're kind of shy or they kind of silly and outgoing. Sometimes I might not know what their best angle is, and that's a little stressful having to figure that out live in the moment, but like stuff at the Averitt Center, I usually have a lot more time to kind of play around and move. And I mean, if I'm shooting a show, it's, it's a 2-hour rehearsal.
Wow.
So yeah, I've got plenty of time to kind of, if this scene didn't work, maybe the next scene, I get a lot more shots, a lot more range in their face or body movement in the next scene,
Awesome. And then a question that my students in my Lightroom class, they also had, and I really didn't know how to answer this because this is a stylistic thing with photography. Like, I feel like when I look at your work, especially with the stuff that you did, like I think you did some fashion photography that I saw, and then you also have the Avery Center. Like there is a definite style to your work, and especially it seems to play with the colors. Like my students ask me, well, so how do you know when you, because like all I could do is tell them, well, I know when something looks way overexposed or if it's underexposed, and it's like, you know, I couldn't give them a hard rule on that because I felt like it's almost I don't, you know what I mean? Like, how do you find your style?
So much of it is kind of, I feel like, up to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in college, you know, I mean, I took a couple of photo courses in college, and it was like in the dark room, we had to learn film before you could even take digital at that time. So I took some film classes in the dark room, and I can remember my professor saying, you know, oh, this area is too hot, which meant it was too white, you know, it was too overexposed. But as I've moved on and I've seen other photographers, it's kind of like painting. It's like there's really no right way to do it. I think it's just whether or not the whole composition works. I kind of started eventually, like I'd hear my professor saying, oh, that's too hot, you know, that area. But then I'm thinking, but you know what? I like it, and I'm not getting graded for this in your class anymore. So
that's
just
awesome.
I mean, but you know, I mean, look at all the impressionists. You know, like everybody said they were doing it wrong, but we're still, you know, learning about them and appreciating their art today. So
that's great. Okay, well, then I didn't give them the wrong answer. I was like going,
no, you didn't. I think it's just
you know.
I think ultimately a lot of times for any artwork, whether it's like photo or painting or drawing, I think the most important thing is, does it make people pause and look harder?
Okay.
I think that's your ultimate goal.
That's awesome. That's a great statement because we had a critique the last day, and I marveled because they're adult students that I was teaching, and it was like, they're so much better photographers than I'll ever be. I was just showing out how to use the software, and I was just like, that's beautiful. That is wonderful, like depth of field. You know, we were doing, you know, all the, you know, art lingo and everything, but it just, I wish you know, it's one of those things. I always gravitated towards drawing and more draftsman kind of stuff. But I do appreciate with photography, like it's very intentional. I feel like people just don't realize that photo that you look at, like to think about the exposure, to think about your shutter speed, even though everything is kind of digital, but you still want to maybe prioritize whether you're doing it on your shutter speed or your aperture. But capturing that composition and knowing that I need to be at this spot, so I capture that angle, it fascinates me, you know, or when you're in that moment, some of my photography students, and I saw, like, they told me they just how they knew that was it. And when I was watching Ansel Adams, his, like, on YouTube or something like that, and that just knowing and the time and the thought that really goes into it, it really is. There's more than just, it's not like, I don't know, because like a lot of people think I just snap the picture and that, but you know, there's so much more to it. That is an art form that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you just sort of catch it. You know, like you see the photograph before you took the photograph.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have that. I wish I did, but I go like, I don't know how you all do it, because I was just complimenting my students. It was gorgeous. I'll have to send you a picture of some of their work, but they were great. So another question is, how do you stay motivated? Because you are very busy. You mentioned you're an art teacher. Then you're doing your photography work. How do you balance that whole work-life balance? Because that one I struggle with a lot. I feel like, I don't know about you, but I get very absorbed into my teacher mode, and I want the best for my student. I want to push them, and a lot of times my stuff kind of gets pushed to the side, or you just even have a family. You know, you have a family, that stuff, just all of that. How do you stay motivated and keep that balance?
I think for me, like I enjoy teaching. I enjoy teaching art. Like I would not want to teach anything else. But I think for me, you know, like when the kids are doing a project, I'm always doing the example, or, you know, I might be creating my own project along with them, you know, just to kind of give them ideas and motivate them. And it's fun, but I think for me, I don't want to say boring, because I feel like that sounds so negative. But you remember teaching elementary, you know, and when you're you have to kind of take your level down a little bit, because if you do
Mm-hmm.
too good of a job, it almost intimidates the kids where they think they can never do that well and they quit before they really try. So I feel like a lot of times in my teaching, I'm really just trying to encourage the kids and get them to do their best. And I'm not really, I guess, creating artwork and using my full potential in the classroom.
Gotcha.
So I think, as an artist, that needs to be fulfilled, to
Mm-hmm.
have some area where I'm like expressing myself and challenging myself and learning and creating some, output that I get to critique and get feedback from other people. So for me, that's, I guess, photography. That's where I work on something just for me. And I'm always looking to get better, and I enjoy sharing it. And it's, I guess, it's, something just for me where I grow, you know.
That's great. Well, definitely. I mean, your level of work and the thought you put behind your photography work shows, and um, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. So the next one is. Are there any other projects that you're currently working on, maybe besides the Averitt Center at this time? I mean, I don't know. I guess seasonal photography tends to be, I guess, maybe. Is there anything that you're really kind of really busy with right now, or
I've
besides
got,
that?
I've got things lined up for the Averitt Center. There's something, it seems like almost weekly I've got to go
Mm.
shoot. I'm still also like, it's like a third hat I wear besides teaching, being the contracted Averitt Center photographer. I still also take jobs additionally, like just for myself. And that's where like weddings and proms and,
Wow.
senior pictures, all that stuff comes in. I just actually like tested the water of like displaying my photography somewhere, which was
Oh, congratulations! It's beautiful. You really, I mean, it really is very professional
thank you.
level. Like I could see that, like magazines, and I know they're using it for their marketing on posters and things like that at the Averitt Center. But I could see totally, like definitely in magazines, whether fashion or local or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
awesome, and in a gallery too. So where
right.
at? Where
It's
was that at?
it's here in Statesboro. Like seriously, it's um they have. I'm a member of an association here, like an
Oh,
art
awesome.
association, and they sort of do a lot to try to rotate artwork in different venues around Statesboro. They have one wall at the public library here,
Oh,
and everybody
nice.
kind of like, if you want to,
Yeah.
you can choose to do an installment. Um, so I just been that was new for me. I've never really done that before. Gone out to like show my work or do a display. Everything's always been kind of like, here are your pictures on a CD, and that's and that's it. So I actually used photographs I'd taken of my daughters. They
Oh.
were playing in Halloween costumes from 2 years ago in their fairy costumes one day. Ended up going outside, running around their fairy costumes. And it was one of those moments where I saw the picture before it happened, like the sun was going down and just the way the light was kind of like hitting those fairy wings in the backyard. Ran in, got the camera, and took some. So yeah, I don't know. It was kind of nice to do it for them at the same time.
Well,
They
and
had no idea I was hanging those at the library, so
oh,
it was a surprise when I took them to go see it.
oh, what they say?
Oh, they were just so excited, like, why are they here, and like who gets to see
Oh,
them, and why did you use our
oh,
pictures? And so they were really, it was just really sweet, just the smiles on their faces when they saw that.
and that's like so personal. I don't know. It's like I've done some pieces where I've done drawings of my son, or it's something that, and I think the work is just so much better as an artist because you just have a personal connection. So you're just more
Mm-hmm.
vested, and you're just trying to make the best, out of it. So
Yep.
that's great. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah. And they'll have that. That's something that your daughters will be able to, have for when they're older and look back on that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, next question is what's your favorite place to see art?
Um, Probably. I would say a gallery when I can get
Mm-hmm.
to one. Definitely. I love the High. Um,
Mm.
they have some really awesome exhibits
Yeah.
that go through there. Um, but also probably lately, just local artists.
Oh,
Like
awesome.
being a part of that association, I like seeing what people around me can do. Um, and a lot of the people that I'm in the association with are self-taught, which is mind-blowing because a lot of them are painters, and I'm not like a huge painter, you know? So it always just blows my mind to see what they do, especially being self-taught, you know, just kind of learning as they go, buying their own supplies, just sort of relying on other friends that don't have that much of an art background, you know, to kind of give them feedback and stuff, you know. And I've even tried to start collecting pieces from other people in the association. Like I bought a ceramic piece. I've bought a graphic design piece from a friend. She did like a kind of this like dreamy unicorn in the stars thing. She had it hanging in a gallery show here. I took my 6-year-old to see it, and she loved it. And we bought it because I kind of wanted to encourage that her appreciation for art. Go into a gallery, you know, coming home with a piece, you know. So she kind of in a way bought her first piece at 6 years old.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So would you recommend if somebody's starting out to maybe look around and see if there are local associations that they can join and maybe network with?
Yes, because that's what got me to finally, you know, put my toes in the water as far as displaying. You know, everything had always been kind of job based. You know, I took the pictures, you know, I would edit, I develop, you know, I might put them on Facebook, but otherwise, you know, I just turn them in digitally to whoever, you know, you had requested them. So, yeah, I think it gets you to try new things, you know, like displaying, you meet other artists. There are a few juried shows coming up. That's kind of on my list of things to do to kind of push myself a little bit more. Try entering something in a juried show and just see what happens.
That's great. So can you tell us about what's the most indispensable item in your studio that you just can't live without?
Well, that would be my camera in my case. My camera, the camera bag, you know, I have a couple other lenses, you know, that change out. The battery pack I'm charging up on. It's all very technical, but yeah, that's like kind of my livelihood there. It's like my right arm a lot of times. Play dates for work, family reunions, you know, around the house in the backyard, you know, the camera comes out a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. So what would you, when starting out as a photographer, is there anything you kind of wish you'd known before that you've kind of learned through your journey as a photographer that you wish you had known earlier on?
I would say probably just understanding a little bit more about the from your camera to print relationship, how that goes. A lot of times the way something looks on my camera, and then it goes on my computer and I edit, and then maybe you don't choose the best printer that first time, and how it looks on your computer and then how it looks when you have it printed out as 8x10 can be disappointing at times. So I have learned to be pickier about who I print with, as well as sometimes have to kind of compensate for that computer screen backlight.
Oh, yeah.
For what's going to actually happen when I print.
Oh, okay. That's good advice. Because I guess, I don't know, it's one of those things, because as graphic design, you kind of run into that too, because the color gamut you have on your screen is never going to be as extensive with the with CMYK when it's printed. And so I've always been fortunate, because in my instance as a graphic designer, I would have that relationship with the printer, and so I would get my printer proofs and be like, okay, that's kind of like my preview of how it's going to print versus having it with my printer. Though I've been kind of stepping in a little bit, because I finally bought a color laserjet printer, and I've been really happy with it, because I had my inkjet, and my inkjet is great. You get that pop with the color, but the cost, I was like, man, the ink is killing me. So finally, I invested in a color laserjet printer, and I've been really happy with it. But I'm trying to find a paper that will give me that kind of pop, like with the glossy that you get with the inkjet, but it can't ruin my new laserjet because it's heat based. So anything I run through there, I got to be careful with. But I've been pretty happy with the color overall. It's been pretty close on with what I've been. There's still a little bit of that deadness to it, but yeah, I've been. It's one of those things that whether you're a graphic designer, photographer, illustrator, any kind of applied arts field, that you're gonna have to worry about how it's gonna final represent, because you want it to be your best work and whoever sees it. So it's always that interesting little thing. Experience helps, and being patient, and you get there. So
yeah.
But the last question is a kind of a deeper question. It goes, at the end of your life, you've made all the art that you've wanted and you've lived a full life. If there could be nothing left behind of your existence but a note you've written with 3 final truths, what would those truths be?
Okay. I think this one's, you're right, pretty deep.
Yeah. So everybody goes like, really? This kind of heavy. Like,
yeah, I think for me, like at my age now and teaching 10 years, kind of really getting somewhere with my photography finally, really trying different things and pushing myself with a 6-year-old and 2-year-old little girls. Also now, I mentioned the other day, like, I'm at the end of my divorce now. I think at this point, the most important things would be, it almost sounds cliche, I don't know how much you've heard this saying, but like, live your truth. Like, and that covers a lot of things, like be true to yourself, be true to your values and beliefs. Also, I would say look at how much you're putting out into the world positively versus how much you're taking away. I think that's really important. It's hard to say it like kind of succinctly and like as few words as possible.
Yeah, no.
But I think I try to balance like, and it doesn't have to be items, physically, but it might just be, emotionally. What are you putting out and into others versus what you're taking away? That's something I've noticed as I've gotten older. I work on myself. I try to be that example for my daughters, as well as like as I've got older, I gravitate towards other people that I see trying to do the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I've interviewed, you're my 14th artist, and everybody kind of has this very, with that last question, there have different interpretations, but a lot of it goes down to being positive, being true to yourself, and being, putting yourself out there. You only live life once, so, and especially the positivity. Everybody's message is very positive about how they would end it. So, I just think all of that is true, because I think it does, in the end, it kind of comes back to you, and yeah. And so, and I do agree, definitely being around people, like as I've gotten older, I used to think it had to be this isolated, emotional, knockdown, drag out. I don't know, you read about all these crazy artists. I don't know, I just had this perception of like, it's very, yourself. But as I get older, I feel like I need to connect with other people who are in the arts field, because otherwise it is very lonely, and it's very like, you need to have the bouncing off. Like, I never appreciated critiques in college. Like, I now appreciate it, and I really push my students to, like, you need to participate in this, because otherwise you'll never see the things, how it communicates to the end viewer. Like, this part of it is very important, even though you're not necessarily making something. It's understanding what you made and what you're putting out there. Right. So yeah, it's very, but thank you so much. All of your answers are very insightful. Photography is one of those things, I find it interesting. I don't think I'm very good at it. Something I would like to try to get better at, but it's something my students love in high school. They love photography.
They've constantly got a camera in their pocket. I think part of it, and access to hundreds of filters, right there in their pocket. So I think that's part of increasing the interest in photography with younger people.
Really? Okay. So maybe that accessibility to it, because I find it intimidating. Some of it, it's just that whole, I overthink it. But yeah, my students love it, and I want to do more photography so that they can really, grow as photographers. Because I feel like if you don't get out there, you got to shoot those pictures. You got to push yourself. So.
You know what? Yeah. Speaking of that, I will email you.
Oh, okay.
I'll probably just take some screenshots of some notes that I made, but I actually taught a photo camp last summer through the Averitt Center.
Oh my gosh.
And it was kind of like everybody bring what you have, whether it's your cell phone or a tablet or you actually have a camera, like bring what you have and we're all going to learn together. But we had a lot of fun, like doing some photo challenges and like the themes of different assignments and stuff. And like literally like every day, like at the end of like whatever the photo challenge was or the assignment, they'd have a little edit time, prop, whatever. We would seriously like sit on the floor at the Averitt Center. Everybody would put their device in the middle, which was typically a phone or a tablet. And that's how we would critique, just sitting around a circle. And they had fun with it because we would usually vote on which one we felt like was the most successful for that assignment. Like maybe who has the best use of color. And the kids loved to just use Skittles or like M&Ms. And then everybody would put their Skittles or their M&Ms around whichever one was like the one they thought was the most successful. But it's like a real fun but casual way to kind of get kids to maybe get into critiquing, and understand it without it being, like I said, negative or scary.
Yes, or just nobody talks and Miss Miller does all the talking. And I go like, somebody's got to talk here. I mean, I can talk all day. I can see, but yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's such a blessing that you would send that to me and all the stuff that you've shared with me. It's awesome. And I know you'll be very successful with your photography. It is very beautifully, composed, and the way you do your color work and your style of it, it's really well done. So I know you're going to be even busier in the future. So so thank you again for being on my podcast. And
thank you for asking me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, Danielle. And it's so nice because it's like, I don't know, when you're a teacher, when you're our teacher, we talk about like the actual art of teaching, and there's not as much discussion about the other side of the actual art that you make. And so this has been great.
Like, why are you an art teacher? Because technical art teachers, they're an artist.
Yes.
You're an artist first.
And so I think that's also a misconception. I feel like sometimes that we get this rep of being like, those who teach can't do, but it's like, no, they really, your work is phenomenal. I just think that's amazing. And you really do a great job capturing those moments. So yes, much continued success. And did you want to maybe do a shout out for your Instagram if anybody wants to look at your work, or?
Sure. It's just you follow me. It's Danielle Brannon Photography.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Always.
Okay. And I'll put it in the description box of the podcast, so if people want to click on the link and look at more work. So thank you so much. You have a good evening.
Thank you.
And thank you again,
Danielle.
I really appreciate it. All right. Thank you guys for listening. My Creative Life.